Now that we've talked about the leadership roles, being the project sponsor, the business leaders, and the technology leaders, and we've talked about their responsibilities and some of the things that they should do to help encourage a positive and successful agile team, here are some things that are done that are detractors from that. These are things that negatively affect the team as well as the agile project. And the number one thing is leadership demanding mid-sprint changes. That is by far the most stressful situation for a project team. And I know a lot of people will say, well, wait a minute, I get it, but aren't these teams supposed to be able to adapt? Aren't they supposed to be fluid and just kind of go with the change? Well, yes, but that sprint has been committed to. The team's already defined with the product owner what those high priority items are. They've already committed to those high priority items and what they feel they can get done in that sprint. Trying to make a mid-sprint change can cause rework and other issues that just don't need to be there. The team is being very adaptive, and let's say you have a 2-week sprint. If they're working and let's say halfway through a sprint, they have 1 week to go before they're releasing that sprint. Trying to add in new requirements or user stories into that sprint and say get them done for the end of the sprint, it's going to cause a lot of havoc because really the plan that's been put in place for how that sprint will be completed and who will be doing what goes up in smoke, and it just becomes chaos. It can cause a lot of problems. Instead, that leadership should recognize that, you know what, yes, this change is important. Let's make it the number one priority in our product backlog. So when we're planning our next sprint, which starts in 1 week, the team can start working on that and get that completed, hopefully by the end of that sprint. So you're only waiting 3 weeks for that change, where in a waterfall, you'd be waiting months and months and months, if not years. So it's really important for that leadership that they don't demand mid-sprint changes, or they really, really think about it. If there's a change that they're pushing through mid-sprint, it better have been talked about and thought about, and it is just the highest urgency. And with doing that, you better be removing user stories that were committed to from the sprint, because the team can't just magically get more done. So enough on that, but one of the big detractors is demanding mid-sprint changes. The next one we're going to talk about is hijacking ceremonies to discuss high priority topics. And I'm sure we've all been in those meetings. We go into a meeting, we've got an agenda, certain things that we want to hit on, or certain elements that we're supposed to be doing as part of that ceremony. And our leadership comes in and basically hijacks the whole conversation and takes it a completely different direction to solve some quote-unquote high priority issue or topic. Don't do that. If there's a high priority topic, schedule some other type of meeting to discuss that. Get something else on the calendar. Don't hijack the ceremonies and the meetings that have other agendas and try to, push in your high priority topic. Make a separate meeting to discuss those high priority topics. Another big detractor for leadership is them not being available for demos. Oh, it's so irritating when you do maybe a mid-sprint demo as a team and you're saying, okay, this is where we're at. We just want to make sure we're on the right path. You have people show up, everybody's like, thumbs up, looks good. Maybe there's some feedback, some adjustments you can make. But the leadership team isn't able to come to that demo because they're too busy or what have you. Then they come into the sprint review and they're, wait a minute, this isn't what we want, and they're requesting all this overhaul, not just additional features, but an overhaul to the way the team completed that story or those various stories. And really, leadership just needs to be there for those demos. They need to be providing the feedback. When the team is scheduling feedback demos, be there and provide that feedback. Don't wait until the sprint review when the sprint is over to then go through and say, this isn't going to work for us, and cause a whole bunch of issues for the team. Be available for the demos. The next one is discouraging communication with other teams. Obviously, it's important for the leadership to encourage that cross-team collaboration, right? And that cross-department collaboration. Don't discourage communication with other teams. Don't discourage team members from going and talking to other people. Another big detractor with leadership is removing or changing available resources mid-project. I know sometimes this can't be helped, and organization and businesses change all the time, and it has to be done sometimes. But I've been part of some projects where the development team was not the same week in and week out. And it's hard enough to move forward on a solution with sprints and making sure that everything's aligned when you have a team that's steady. But now go ahead and start removing and adding in different resources and changing resources all the time. It just doesn't work. That team needs to be stable. That team needs to be pretty much cemented into that development team, and those resources need to be there. If something catastrophic comes up, you have to pull a resource out. It happens, but it should be done with a lot of thought and a lot of understanding of how it's going to impact and really negatively impact that project, as that development team is certainly not going to be as effective as they were with their other resources. And last but not least, another big detractor from leadership is them just really not valuing the agile mindset and not valuing people over processes or communication over documentation. It's important that the leadership team is aware of what the agile mindset is and what it means. They shouldn't be requesting packets of documentation throughout the project, because that's not the agile way. It's not the agile way to create all these documents that have no use. Instead, the team is communicating and working through their problems on a real-time basis. And so the leadership just needs to be aware of that, whether they come from a waterfall or other non-agile environment or framework. It's important that they are aware of the agile mindset and they're really embracing it.